Alrighty, the question is, if you're used to Olympic squats, will box squats help? If you're sticking with your Olympic style, box squats are probably going to be pretty useless. If you're looking to switch over to more of a powerlifting style squat, which would probably be advisable, box squats can help, especially to work on like your glute activation out of the hole when you're in a wider stance, because you're not going to be used to that since you're used to just kind of bouncing out of it. One thing I found though is, as a raw squatter, you don't want to incorporate box squats as much. You kind of lose feel for the bottom of the squat and for that reversal power that you need when you're down there. But yeah, definitely set the box at parallel, maybe a little bit below if you're a depth Nazi, and go for it. Alright, the question is, as a beginner, when you know when it's time to switch programs? The short answer is when it stops working for you. How you know when it stops working for you? You know, when your total starts to stagnate, that's an obvious indication that, you know, it's not working anymore. But, you know, things you can see more day to day is when you can't hit the percentages that you're supposed to be hitting anymore. You've maxed out your linear gains with that program, and it's time to switch to a different program, or switch to something where you're not expected to make linear gains every week, because, you know, as you get out of those new gain range, that's going to happen. Alrighty, the question is, if you're stalling out 3/4 of the way up on bench or on overhead press, things you can do to work on that. Yeah, board work, or, you know, more contrast as far as bands and chains will definitely help overload the top of that. In overhead press, you could do more lockout work off pins. You could do more of a push press so that you're getting a little bit of leg at the bottom so that you're pressing it out by yourself at the top. It's really just going to work on your shoulders, but especially your triceps at the top of either of those movements are going to be key. So, you know, any other sort of tricep work will be good, but you just really can't get the heavy weight that you can get with a heavy bench off boards or a heavy overhead press off pins, which is what you really need when you're going on a max effort lift.
And what percent should you use?
There's not really any exact percent. Depending on the program you're using, you know, you could max on board work or pin press. But otherwise, we'll usually just do it for an accessory, usually like sets of 5, sets of 8. If you're doing it for an accessory, you don't want to go to failure, you just want to go, you know, you can get a set of 5, but you might have 6 or 7 in you, and do that for 3 to 5 sets, depending on what rep range you choose.
This question is about uneven trap development. I had that problem for a while, and the bar would sit kind of crooked when I'd squat. What it was my hand that was overhand when I deadlifted, that side my trap got bigger. So definitely check your deadlift. You should be alternating your grip, which hand's over, which hand's under. And also the other thing is do a lot of dumbbell isolation work for your back, because it'll even out over time. If you always do barbell work for your back, then you can always favor one side over the other. This question is it necessary for someone that's more of a beginner to deload every 4th week? I think it's still important. I don't think you have to deload as much, because you're probably, if you're a true beginner, you're not efficient enough at the lifts yet, so you're probably not taxing your nervous system as much. But I would still deload. We usually go down to like 50% to 60% of your max for 5 sets of 5. Or now, even when I deload, I don't do any barbell movements that day, and I just deload my 2 max effort days. So I would definitely still do it, but I think as a beginner you don't have to deload as much, 50 to 60% of your max. This question's on how often do we do max effort squat versus max effort deadlift. This definitely varies by lifter. We tend to do everything in a 3-week block, so you never want to do squat 2 weeks in a row or deadlift 2 weeks in a row. So there'll usually be a squat dead squat or dead squat dead. The way you should do it is, whichever of those 2 lifts you're worse at, you should do that one the 1st and 3rd week, so you get it in twice. The one that you're better at, do 2nd, or like a lot of times if you're close to a meet, almost everyone will squat the 1st and 3rd week and deadlift in the middle, that last block going into a meet. But you should be doing whichever one you're worse at more often.